What gives you the creeps more? Thinking about dying or thinking about preparing your estate planning documents? For me, lately it's been preparing those documents because I've been thinking about doing this for about 10 years at least, just, off and on. I'll think, oh, I really should do that. I should make a will. I wonder if I need a trust. Who's going to, act on my behalf if I'm incapacitated? But I never did anything about it. So I finally gave myself a deadline and I'm doing something about it. All this time that I've been thinking about this, I've thought, should I try to do this myself? Should I hire an estate planning attorney, a paralegal, a document preparer? I just wasn't sure what to do. I really didn't know if I needed a trust. So I'm going to run through my decision making on all of these factors and let you know what I ended up doing and how much it actually ended up costing me. And real quick, I wanted to thank Julie from Happy on Monday. And I had watched one of her older videos about estate planning that she had done, and it really goosed me and made me say, yes, I can do this. So thank you, Julie. So like I said, I gave myself a deadline. And the reason I gave myself a deadline was 2 years ago at my annual well check visit with my doctor, he had given me a pamphlet called 5 Wishes. And I'll talk more about this. But basically, this is a document that covers your final wishes. And it covers a lot of things, medical and, how you want to be treated if you're in the hospital or a care home or something. And it was really comprehensive and good. So he gave it to me 2 years ago. I went back to the doctor last year for my well check, annual well check. And he asked if I had brought back my 5 Wishes document. And I said, oh, no. And I think I said something like, I forgot. Well, I hadn't even looked at it. I just kept moving the little pamphlet from one pile to another. I knew where it was, but I hadn't opened it. I hadn't even read it, nothing. And he kind of gave me the stink eye, and I thought, oh. So this year, I thought, I'm taking that thing with me. So I opened it up, and I started reading it and marking down things that I wanted, some of my wishes. But I had a few questions, so I thought, okay, I'm going to take it with me, ask him these questions, and then I would get it notarized and return a copy to his office to have in my medical file. So that was my instigating event that made me want to get all this done. I thought, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the rest of it. I'm going to get this done once and for all. I looked into using an estate planning attorney, kind of just a cursory look, and then I realized it was a lot of money, like $1,000. It's like, I'm not going to pay that. I'm not a stupid person. I can do a lot of things. I am do-it-myself peg, by the way. So I figured I'm just going to see what I can do. See if I really need a trust, which made it sound so complicated, or not. And if I didn't, then I was even, I was more sure I could do it myself instead of having to hire an attorney or a paralegal or somebody. So I ended up spending probably, I'd say, a good week, just off and on, an hour here and there, taking notes, looking up things online, and deciding what documents I needed, if I, what the qualifications were for needing a trust. Because if I needed one, that just sounded really complicated to me. More of a pain in the butt than anything else. So I decided, after doing the research, I did not need a trust, and I will tell you why. One of the things I learned about if you need a trust, it's often because you have a large amount of money, like $80,000 or more, sitting around, maybe, cash under your mattress. I don't have anything like that. That is not assigned a beneficiary, basically. So like a checking or savings account. If you don't have a beneficiary on there and it's a bunch of money, you might need a trust. But I learned, I went through all my accounts and double checked my checking and savings accounts. I had assigned a beneficiary. That means if I died, that person would get those accounts, the money in the accounts. My investment accounts, I have two different ones. They both had beneficiaries assigned. They were good to go. I have some money in my checking and savings, but again, it's assigned to someone. But the one thing that was outstanding was my house. I didn't want to put someone on the deed with me because then you have to get their approval to sell. And, if they got into some kind of legal trouble, they could, the court or whatever could come after my house if they're on it already. But I learned about a beneficiary deed. So I looked into that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So basically, these accounts that I had or have are transfer on death or payment on death accounts that are assigned over, they're signed over basically to the beneficiary when you die. So now I'll get into the documents that I needed to complete my estate planning portfolio. I knew I needed a will, a last will and testament. So I basically found online some forms and I took from them what I needed. I put in my state, because certain things are specific to each state. And I just typed it out because, it wasn't very long. It's depending on what you put into it. So the form itself, the template, there wasn't much to it. I also included an attachment. And in that document, it was part of my will, but I didn't want to include all the little details in the will itself, so I said, see attachment. So in the attachment, I detailed specific wishes that didn't seem like they fit in the will document itself. So I attached that, and then I read about a self-proving affidavit. And I'll tell you what that is. So basically, a self-proving affidavit is simply a document that says, and I had it notarized, that I was of sound mind when I made my will. It is witnessed, and so it makes the will more valid, basically, so that it doesn't have to go to probate or to court, that it's just valid on its own. The next document after my will and this self-proving affidavit was the financial power of attorney. I assigned a person to who I trust to act on my behalf for financial matters, like to pay my bills. I'm going to give them the access to my banking information so that, if I'm in a care home or something, they could still pay my bills as needed. And if that's not done, evidently that can be a big old nightmare. So I figured that's a good thing to do. The next thing was my healthcare proxy or healthcare power of attorney. There's a lot of names for all these things, but if you use something that you find online as a reputable name, it should work. And again, I picked a person that I felt I could trust, and along with this 5 wishes document, and it says on here, 5 wishes. My wish for the person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't. The kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. How comfortable I want to be. How I want people to treat me. And what I want my loved ones to know. So it's 2 of the things, the first 2, making healthcare decisions and the kind of medical treatment, are what I thought all this would be. But the other 3 items, how comfortable you want to be, how you want people to treat you, and what you want your loved ones to know, are more of on a personal level. But it was kind of nice to see the different options, and I just crossed things out or I wrote in notes, and I wouldn't have even thought of these things. So I would look into the 5 wishes document and see if you can get one from your doctor. They do have a website. Again, I'll show you. It's 5 wishes. And you can buy them, I think, for $5 for a paper copy. But I would check around. Your doctor's office may be able to give you one free, like I got. So I think it's worth having. Along with the healthcare power of attorney, like I said, I wrote right on here at the top, this is my healthcare, durable power of attorney, portable medical order, and living will. It's all my wishes. And in the document, the 5 wishes document, it says, this is my final living will type. It's worded a certain way, but it supersedes a living will. So you can use this as your living will. It was one less thing to deal with, so I was glad to use it. And the final document I needed, like I said, my house. I hadn't assigned a beneficiary, like who was going to get my house if I still own it when I die. So there's something called a beneficiary deed. And I went online to the county recorder's office and downloaded a file. It was a PDF, so I could have it up on my computer, fill in the blanks, and then print it out. And this was great because it's basically, once you record the beneficiary deed with the county recorder's office, it's on file that upon your death, the beneficiary can take your death certificate to that office and the deed gets put in their name. It's on file. That's my wishes. So I did that. Easy peasy. I mean, everything was actually very simple once I decided I'm going to do this. I did all of these documents myself, didn't hire anybody. So I think I'm going to pat myself on the back. Good job. I wanted to tell you real quick kind of how I found the forms that I ended up using. I Googled my state and then free, because I didn't want to pay for anything, form living will or living will form, whatever. So state, free, living will form, or healthcare power of attorney, free form for this state. I ended up finding my living will and healthcare power of attorney forms at the state's attorney general's office. And it was just a file I could download, have on my computer, fill it in, print it out. Ta-da! It was free, worked great. So your state may also have an attorney general's office, it does, that offers free forms for you to use. Another place to look is a judicial or court center. Just Google, and I'm going to show a graphic here at the end of all of these places. Just free legal forms and your state name, judicial or court center, and see what comes up. For the beneficiary deed that I used, that was through my county, not the state, but the county. So you'd put in the county name where you live, the county recorder's office. If you aren't able to find something, I would just do a generic Google search for free legal forms and your state. You will find just about everything out there. I mean, everything is out there. So that part was actually pretty simple once I knew what forms I needed. So now we'll talk about the costs. Like I said, I didn't hire a lawyer. I didn't use a paralegal or a legal document preparer or anything. I just did everything myself, researched it, felt pretty good about it, and then I figured, even if it's not exactly 100% right, at least I tried, and I think it is. So, to start with, my first cost was to take my computer to the library, because I don't have a printer, and print out some of the forms that I had completed. And that cost a couple dollars. It was almost $2 to print out the forms. Once I had all of my forms in paper copy form, I went to a notary public, and I was able to find a notary for free. And I would recommend trying to find this yourself, because I ended up having quite a few signatures. And this free notary that I was able to use was through my HOA. So I got something out of my HOA. I don't use hardly any of their benefits, but our HOA pays this company or this organization for different services they provide, and notary service is one of them. So I was able to get all of my documents notarized, and they provided the witnesses too. I didn't have to drag along some neighbors or anything. So it was a very easy process. I had everything ready to go. She notarized all of everything, so I didn't have to pay for that. That was great. Then I had to go make copies of everything once it was notarized. So I had an original that I had printed out, taken to the notary, got them notarized. Then I made 3 copies of all the files, all the papers. I was going to give them to 2 different people, keep one for myself and the original. Probably a little bit of an overkill, but that's what I wanted to do. So that was a larger amount of copies I had to make. And in total, my copies cost me $10.20. Not bad. Then I had my beneficiary deed notarized, ready to take to the county recorder's office, and I had to pay $2 to park. So there was $2. And to file the beneficiary deed, it cost me $30. So those were my expenses. A total of $42.20. And I didn't think that was bad at all. And you know what else? I did have another expense. Hours and hours of my own time. But it was worth it. To me, what else am I doing? I mean, I would have, been reading a book or watching TV or whatever. So I was happy to spend my own time doing this and not have to pay an attorney or a paralegal or a legal document preparer. So what do you think? Have you done your estate planning? Filed all your documents or got your ducks in a row? I feel a lot better now that this is all done. It's a load off. I have been really thinking about this for years, and I am so happy it's finally finished. And like I said, it may not be perfect, but like the notary told me, she said, unless somebody contests your will, it's fine. Whatever you've done is fine. So that made me feel good. And if you're new here, I'm Do-It-Myself Peg, and I really do enjoy doing things for myself when I can. This one, I really debated. I went back and forth. Should I do this myself? Should I hire somebody? But I decided, yeah, I can do it myself. And I did. And I think you can too. It's really easy once you break it into small chunks and just work on it. I gave myself 1 whole week to figure out the files I needed, and then to find the files, fill them in, make copies, because I had a notary appointment on a certain day. So I gave myself a week, and I thought, it doesn't have to take that long. This is not something I need to think about for a month. And I got it done in that week, and I just felt so good. And I feel really good about what I've done. So let me know if you've already completed your estate planning or if you still need to. And, you know, if you're going to do something, or are you just going to let things happen as they will? Let me know if you plan to do your own estate planning, or if you've already had it done by someone else, or just, you know, if you haven't even thought about it. I really do feel better having done mine and just finished it. And I will see you next time.